You've seen me make miniatures, barely functional robots, and an ultraviolet water fountain. But did you know that I also make functional things? It's rare, but I do. Today I want to show off my top 10 favorite functional prints of 2021. I started this YouTube channel just over a year ago. And over the course of that first year, I've made over 35 unique projects just so I could make videos about them. But I started 3D printing back in 2015. I didn't start doing it so I could make a YouTube channel. And I didn't stop making things for myself the moment I started making things for YouTube. That means that I've got a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes prints that you have never seen before. Which is why I want to do this video today, talking about my top 10 functional 3D prints of 2021. Now, because I'm focusing on 3D prints themselves and not my printers, that means I'm not going to talk about my amazing 3D printer bench that I built, but I want to give it an honorable mention because I absolutely love it. That said, let's get rolling with number 10.
The number 10?
Number 10, my 3D printed drawers. I have a ton of teeny tiny little components. I'm talking skate bearings, switches, LEDs, water pumps, lithium battery cells, and so on. They all needed a place to live. And so, now there's a ton of options available on Thingiverse, and I linked down in the description to the first one that I printed, but I've since moved on to designing my own. The reason I do that is I can get them exactly the right dimensions to fit the space that I've got available, which is why this upper left-hand corner looks so cherry.
Next up is a local favorite, number 9.
Number 9 is some extremely custom organization that I keep right here next to my workbench. Now, this little metal pegboard I picked up from Target's cheapo dollar section years ago, but the problem was that the metal hooks it came with were loose. That causes two problems. Number one, they make a lot of noise as they bang against the metal pegboard, and number two, they'll fall out whenever I grab a tool off of there. I hated that, and since I've got a problem that needs solving, of course I turned to 3D printing. So now I've got room for the 3D pen that I use to fuse parts together, some machine oil, super glue, as well as super glue activator, my favorite hammer of all time, isopropyl alcohol, a little bit of water, and of course the important stuff right over here.
We are on number 8.
All right, number 8's not really a thing. It's kind of a category of things. And the category is things that are extremely small and seemingly unimportant, but also really super specific. So in particular, look at this guy. This is a battery door that I printed for my mini Fender guitar amp. I love this amp, but I lost this battery door maybe 15 years ago. I'm never going to find it again. I don't even know if you could find this online anywhere to purchase separately, and I don't know what the price would be if you could find it. So what's your alternative? Tape the thing up with electrical tape? This is obviously better. Now, the other quality of life tiny print in this category is going to be this tiny little piece that I printed here. I do a lot of measurements right here at the desk as I do my designing, and it's really handy to have these things in one spot. They never get lost because they go on the hook.
Number 7.
Number 7 is my B-roll turntable. This thing is awesome. It's mostly 3D printed, as is everything on this list. It uses an Arduino Uno as its brains, and basically what it's going to do is it'll trigger a stepper motor to slightly rotate the turntable, and then it's going to trigger a servo to press the button on my shutter remote for my Nikon camera. Snaps a shot, rotates the table, snaps a shot, rotates the table, and basically what I get is stop motion video, or rather images I can stitch together into a stop motion video in Photoshop. The cool thing about it is still images can be shot at a significantly higher resolution than 4K, so that extra resolution gives me the ability to digitally zoom or crop, as well as the ability to do like animated camera movements, which I'm still not good at, but I can technically do.
Number 6.
I don't just make YouTube videos. I'm also a little bit addicted to YouTube videos. See, when I'm sitting at my computer and I'm trying to design a new project or do some editing or write a script, I'm almost always watching a video on YouTube on my phone. And I usually just toss it on the desk just below the monitor, and it's fine. It's fine, but I need something better. So I went ahead and designed this little stand that utilizes the metal plate I've already got in my case so I could use magnetic mounts in the car. And this print incorporates a very strong magnet that I salvaged from something. So now I can set it right there next to my monitor and still be moderately productive while watching 30 hours of YouTube a week.
That seems like a lot.
Yeah!
Number 5 is alive.
Batteries. We all have them. Typically, you've got them in a junk drawer, but of course that's not good enough for me. That's why I've got these two terribly mismatched battery dispensers. Now, at one time they did match, by the way, but one of them is holding AAAs and one of them is holding AAs, and my kids' toys almost all run on AA batteries. And so now I've had to print this monstrosity that can hold 37 AA batteries. Absolutely love this one. Now, I've linked to that one down in the description. The other one, I don't know, but I'm going to tell you what. If you need a battery dispenser, jump on Thingiverse and feel free to go down that 20-plus page rabbit hole. Oh my goodness, there are a lot.
Number 4.
Number 4 is actually all of the things that I needed to print in order to make Lord Chungus Humongous out there even remotely useful. If you're not familiar, Lord Chungus Humongous is the name I gave to one of my 3D printers. It started its life as a Geeetech A20M that my wife bought me as a Christmas present. She got a really, really good deal on it, but by the time I'd opened it, the return policy was up, and I found out that it was hot trash. The main reason it was trash was also, in theory, its main selling point, which was the mixing hot end that this thing had. You see, a mixing hot end has basically 2 ins and 1 out. So I can have 2 different filaments come in and 1 nozzle coming out, meaning that I can switch back and forth between colors. Great in theory, but in execution, it is absolute dog water. The biggest problem I would face is that this is a very non-standard shape, mounting pattern, size, everything for a hot end. So it's not easy to just swap in a different one. What I had to do was design my own adapter plate for the carriage in order to hold a Phaetus Dragon hot end with a 0.6mm nozzle, as well as holding on to the knockoff BL Touch bed leveling sensor that Geeetech makes and the part cooling fan as well. It took me many, many, many attempts to get it right, and when I finally did have it down, I printed it out of a carbon fiber nylon material that can handle high heat, even though it shouldn't see high heat.
I know I shouldn't, but I will.
Now I have a machine that is incredibly reliable, and I absolutely enjoy having out there on my printer bench.
Number 3.
Microphones. What are they? How do they work? And who do they work for?
I'll do you one better. Why is
Microphone.
One thing I do know about microphones is you don't want to put them onto a desk on a fixed mount, because every time you so much as brush that desk with the back of your hand, you'll hear a thunderous, deafening sound on the recording. So that's why I printed this. This is a shock mount for my microphone that allows me to mount it onto this boom arm and isolate it from any vibrations that might be coming through from the arm or from the table that it's mounted to. Could I have bought a shock mount? Of course I could, but because I'm using an Insignia microphone, that's Best Buy brand, it's not exactly industry standard, and the only way to be 100% sure it was going to fit my microphone was to make it myself.
Hey, number 2.
When working on small electronics projects, and especially when using salvaged components, it's really, really helpful to have a variable voltage power supply nearby. Now, if I wasn't a cheapskate, I would have bought this one. But I am a cheapskate, which means I bought this one. It works fine for my needs, even though it is a little bit underpowered at 48 watts, but the components I'm using are also not very powerful, so it hasn't been an issue yet. What has been an issue is the design, because it is built like a laptop charger, with a brick in the middle and a long cord leading to a barrel plug at the other end. It's not super convenient for working with projects. So what I did was design and print this little case here that'll hold it, winds up the extra cord, and terminates that barrel plug into 2 M3 bolts that I can clip alligator test leads to. I still might be building a more powerful bench power supply later on down the road, so make sure you get subscribed if you want to see something like that. But for now, this thing is doing the job just fine.
you? Are my number 1.
For this last one, if I just showed it to you, and I didn't give you any context, you probably wouldn't call it functional. But let me explain how this one serves a purpose in my life, and maybe you'll see it my way. As I mentioned earlier, this YouTube channel is barely over a year old, and when you've got a new YouTube channel, one that's growing, it's very tempting to spend too much time looking into the YouTube analytics, just poring over every tiny little bit of data that they give to you. Now, don't get me wrong, that data is important, it serves a purpose, it's helpful, but it's kind of like loading up Wikipedia. You know, you go there for one thing, 4 hours later, all of a sudden you now know the Metacritic score for each and every season of Rocko's Modern Life. Cool, but you didn't need that information. Hey, it's editing Ken. Really sorry to have to deliver this bad news, but it turns out you can't find that on Wikipedia. I looked. It's a bad joke.
So you lied to me.
And that's why I made this. It shows me my subscriber count as well as my lifetime video view count, and it just updates automatically via Wi-Fi and displays on this LED matrix. So as I'm sitting at my desk writing scripts, editing videos, designing projects, or maybe just zoning out watching YouTube myself, I can get a quick glance over here and see that my channel is still headed in the right direction.
And that's enough for me.
All right, that wraps up the list of my top 10 favorite functional prints of 2021. If you're not a subscriber, I mean, you probably should be. So just go ahead and hit that button right down below, and then you can become one. Clicking that button also automatically makes you my favorite viewer of all time. So again, just click that button. I thank you for sticking around to the end of this video. I know it's a little odd for my video. It's not the usual format, but I'll tell you what, I'm playing around with formats moving forward so I can try and pump out a few more videos per month, and I hope you'll stick with me through them. If you got any thoughts, comments, questions, complaints, anything of that sort, throw it down in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye. Now, speaking of drawers. I'm talking drawers. Perfectly synchronized. Who writes these scripts?